Happy Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Today will mark the first day of a rain chance each and every day as we go throughout the rest of your work week, into the weekend, even a little bit into the beginning of next week as we creep closer and closer to the month of May and wrap up the month of April. So let's see where our headlines are. Do we have much change from the last couple of days? Not really is the short answer. The summer-like pattern will continue all throughout this week with the heat of the day, rain showers, even a couple of thunderstorms, which look a little bit more likely as we go throughout this week. Check my phone real quick. There we go. Just getting confirmation that we're up on the stream. Pretty warm each day. That does tell the story. That goes along with the summer-like pattern as well. And slim afternoon rain chances. Once again, another factor in a very summer-like forecast during the late spring months here in Central Georgia. So right now, taking a look at downtown Macon, mostly cloudy to some partly cloudy skies, maybe seeing some breaks in that cloud cover or areas where it's a little bit thinner to where you're getting a little bit of sunlight. Let's take it all the way around the horn this morning. We do actually have a new tool that we can utilize that will allow us to see everywhere here in Central Georgia at one time. Let's see if it'll play out for me. There we go. Yes, we got a new quad view for all of our sky cams, so we can view all four of them at one time. Going to be a great thing to use whenever we have severe weather, and it was a great thing to use this morning when we had sunrises and sunsets all across Central Georgia. So right now there's the mostly cloudy skies up in Macon that I just showed you, down to the Georgia National Fairgrounds. A little bit of sunlight out in the distance. That was what I was talking about, some of that higher level cloud cover. It's a little bit thinner in nature, so it still does predominantly look pretty bright outside. Cloudy skies, mainly mostly sunny skies over in Dublin, it looks like. We see some white up there, so not really necessarily seeing the clear blue skies, but you can see the sunlight along the downtown corridor as many people are out and about making their first commute of the day. And then some partly cloudy to mostly cloudy skies once again down in Warner Robins. It's all just going to vary on where you are, just kind of getting maybe some breaks in that cloud cover, maybe just getting some denser cloud cover in nature that could block the sunlight just a little bit. Nonetheless, it hasn't really stopped the warm up this morning. Everyone looks to be above the 70-degree mark. I think this is exactly what we were doing at this time yesterday on your late morning hours on Monday. 70 degrees in Macon, 72 in Warner Robins, along with another 72 in Dublin. 73 in Wrightsville, already at 77 degrees down in Vidalia. 76, just 1 degree shy of that down in Rochelle and Wilcox County, and another 76 over in Taylor County around the Butler area. So it looks to be a story of mainly 70s and continuing to climb the ladder in terms of these high temperatures. And most of the eastern United States, at least areas that are already seeing daylight, are somewhere in maybe the 50s, the 60s, or the 70s far and wide. Down here across this very southeastern extent of the United States, that's where you're going to start to see maybe some mid to upper 70s. Jacksonville at 77 degrees, so right there along with what Vidalia is doing right now. Vidalia actually warmer than Orlando for once. Florida is always kind of the top end of the scale. They're normally just sitting in the 80s, maybe borderline 90s each and every day. In areas in southern Texas and down into southeast Texas, mid to upper 70s as well. Taking it a little bit farther to the north, you're mixing in some 60s and a little bit cooler up in Indianapolis and Lexington. 56 degrees. We only had one area get as low as that temperature mark this morning, and that was Eastman at 55 degrees. So hour by hour, we'll continue to see the warming trend and then kind of bouncing around as we go throughout the afternoon hours. Just like yesterday, high temperature is really going to depend on how much cloud cover we have present. If we have some clouds present for an extended amount of time, that's not going to allow temperatures to crawl into the mid and upper 80s like we were thinking yesterday. We did top out at 84 degrees yesterday, and that's actually what I have forecasted for my high today. But you'll see 81, 80, back to 81 by the time we get into 4 and 5 p.m. This is also going to be dependent now on if we do have any rain showers in the forecast. So today, like I said, we're going to introduce a slight rain chance each and every day. However, there are some days that are looking more likely for rain and some days that aren't looking as likely for rain. But today will mark the beginning of each and every day at least having a shot at seeing some precipitation. So we're going to continue the warming trend. How about the dew points? That's going to be a big factor later on this afternoon for sprouting some of those afternoon showers. And they are up a little bit from this time yesterday. Even some areas seeing those dew point temperatures into the upper 60s, 67, 68. Still not seeing any areas of that dark green, that very muggy air in terms of the humidity. We do see some shades of it over to the west, and you may see a very localized area with some dew points that are right up there around 70 degrees. We don't expect much of an influx in humidity throughout today either. The winds and the wind gusts, very calm right now, maybe a steady breeze 3 to 6 miles per hour. But we don't see any of those blue or yellow shades that we've kind of become so accustomed to seeing. Just a steady breeze each and every afternoon. That doesn't look to be present as we go throughout today. It could build in a little bit in the forecast, but it does look like the gustier winds will remain all around us. So let's talk about the satellite and radar picture. A little more active than what we saw yesterday. We do have plenty of cloud cover, whether it's thinner cloud cover, more dense as you get closer and closer to where this boundary is starting to park itself just to the north of us. Plenty of showers, even some lower end thunderstorms back over into northern Alabama. All along this kind of like line of rain that you do see, that's actually going to be where your stationary boundary is going to be present, but I do believe it still has a little bit of slight motion as of right now. What we're continuing to see is the left end of this boundary start to stall and become more stationary in nature. That's where you're getting the mixing of the warm front icons and the cold front icons, but still has a little bit of motion as it makes its way into the northern portion of the state of Georgia. High pressure is filtering in behind that. Once again, not going to play a role in our forecast, not going to dry us out whatsoever. So we're really looking at this side, the southern end of this boundary, to be a lot more humid, to have some cloud cover and some scattered showers each and every day, especially along that boundary. But luckily, it will be to just the north of us, so that's where we're going to look at the main axis of that precipitation. That's where more of your rain is going to be present, farther up in the northern portion of the state. So today, still going to be a warm day, slim shower chances. Like I said, a steady breeze, maybe 5 to 15 miles per hour. Don't think it's going to be quite as gusty as yesterday. 84 for a high temperature. Would love to show you how that shapes up against average, but I will tell you that yesterday we did have an average high of 79 degrees. Those numbers are down right now. They're doing some maintenance and some updates on the weather transmitters in North Georgia and here in Central Georgia. So a lot of areas are without their almanac data. And that does include our sunrise time, which was sometime just before 7 a.m. this morning. I believe it was at 6:58, 6:57, and then 84 for a high temperature today. That would match exactly what we hit here in Macon as of yesterday, but this temperature will be a little bit cooler if cloud cover does hang around and if we even get a scattered shower in nature up here in Macon to sprout some of that rain-cooled air that will keep the temperature maybe a little bit more pleasant, somewhere in the upper 70s, mid 70s. So let's go through Future View, talk about what's in store for the next couple of days. Heading past the midday hour, seeing some tiny green dots, very light colored in nature. Nothing like what we see up to the north, over to the northwest and northern portions of Georgia and Alabama. But it does look like we do have sufficient moisture for at least a little bit of a rain chance heading into this afternoon. And then we kind of flash forward past that into the evening hours. Still looking predominantly dry as we head all the way into your Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday, each day is going to start out partly cloudy, so that will help keep our temperatures a little bit warmer, just like they were as of this morning. Lower 60s, maybe some upper 50s in there that are a little bit cooler. But then Wednesday, the consensus is, in the change that we've seen since yesterday, we couldn't find really much in the way of rain whatsoever. It does look like Wednesday afternoon actually seeing increased coverage of at least some scattered showers in central Georgia, which will be good, hopefully giving everyone a little bit of that feel of what they need rain-wise. But more so as we head into your Wednesday evening. Actually, I'll take it back here, because I did just see a model run change when I was looking at it. As we were heading into about the 9 to 10 o'clock hours, earlier model runs were showing that we were going to see clusters of steady showers, maybe even a couple of rumbles of thunder enveloped within that. Some of those lower end thunderstorms I was talking about across many of our eastern counties. Now we're not seeing that whatsoever. This just kind of goes back to what I've been saying over the last 24 hours. It's a very summer-like pattern. Where the precipitation pops up is going to be very unpredictable. It's just going to depend on which local areas have those warmer temperatures and they have sufficient moisture to continue to lift up and sprout some of that weather that will lead to a couple of rain showers. Don't get too locked in to where your location is on which certain day at which certain time, because it is more than likely going to change given the unpredictable nature of this. When we go through the summertime months, you'll continue to see us say that a lot more often because it is a very unpredictable thing. It is really just going to matter which areas have the proper ingredients to allow for a little bit of fuel to the fire in terms of some rain showers. So this goes all the way into Thursday now, continuing to start out each and every day partly cloudy, maybe even with a few showers. That could be maybe a lower end thunderstorm, maybe just more of a steadier rain in nature. But once again, don't get too locked in. I'm not saying Hancock County is going to still see some rain showers at 10 a.m. on Thursday morning. They very well could, but we're definitely going to continue to see fluctuation with the models over the next couple of days. Now, if I had to put your best shot on any day of the next 7 days to give you a rain chance, definitely Thursday. Thursday afternoon, we've seen good agreement all morning long amongst these short range models, seeing actually clusters of moisture pop up and some steadier rain, maybe some lower end thunderstorms already by about the 3 p.m. hour. And this continues to be pretty widespread across most of central Georgia. Definitely not covering everyone, but if we continue to see good agreement like this, we will up the chance of rain and the coverage of it, maybe upwards to 40 or 50%. And that may very well be what we go with, just due to the variation between model run and model run. This is Thursday at 5 p.m., the warmest portion of the day, seeing good coverage of steady rain, heavy rain. Obviously can't rule out a couple rumbles of thunder, but we're not in any severe weather outlooks as it does stand. So we're expecting anything in the form of thunderstorms to still stay below severe criteria. However, not to say that they couldn't still be a little bit strong if all the proper ingredients are there for formation. And then that rain starts to maybe move down to the south, move out of central Georgia. There's not going to be a real direction with any of these scattered showers that you do see. They're just going to kind of pop up and just continue to move over the areas that have that untapped environment in terms of moisture, in terms of the warmer air. But it does look like as we head into your Thursday evening, we see that rain activity kind of fizzle out in central Georgia, just because if we see it pop up earlier in the afternoon, well, it's already used up all the fuel that it can get in terms of, once again, the moisture and the warm temperatures. That's what everything is going to be dependent on during this very summer-like forecast over the next couple of days. And as far as future view goes right now, 3 a.m. on Friday, traversing into the Friday morning hours. Like I said, probably going to start out partly cloudy, maybe even mostly clear. We'll keep our fingers crossed for a beautiful sunrise to kick off the last day of the work week. But that's where things do stand right now. And when we pick it up with the long range models in just a little bit, you will see that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we see that rain chance go down a good bit. So I still have about the 20 and 30% chances of rain each and every day. But I will say Wednesday and Thursday are going to be your best shots at seeing any rain whatsoever. So now we'll pick it up. Actually, long range graphic is right here. That is going to be my next one. So let's go all the way into Friday, late afternoon into the evening. That's when many of you are going to want to know the forecast to kick off any weekend plans that you have. 6 p.m. on Friday, a lot of the rain is mainly to the north of us, over to the west of us, northeast of us, basically all around us, but not here in central Georgia. If any is to pop up, it looks like it may be later on into the evening, more so nighttime on Friday night heading into your Saturday. This still isn't a slam dunk forecast by any means. This is just one model showing it, the GFS here in green and maybe some splotches of blue here with the Euro. We'll get a better idea of that once we get into this time tomorrow, and we can view that on our higher resolution models. Now let's go into your Saturday, day by day for your weekend forecast. Some moisture could linger for some scattered showers Saturday morning. That's not set in stone. That's obviously going to fluctuate a lot as well. Going into your Saturday evening, maybe finally seeing a boundary try to creep its way down into central Georgia after they're all really just staying to the north of us and sprouting rain everywhere to the north of us. But it does look like Saturday afternoon into the evening has another slim rain chance. Sunday, not very impressive whatsoever. It looks like any resolution that we get in terms of these blobs of green, these blobs of blue, are really just minuscule dots as we head into the closing portion of your weekend. So not looking like too impressive of a rain chance, but this is still, number one, 5 days out, and number two, going to fluctuate a lot. That's going to be the theme with your forecast. That's why we're kind of putting those cover the bases, 20 and 30% chances of rain because we know we're going to see that fluctuation. So Sunday evening that I just showed you, that's looking more like a 10% chance of rain, maybe just seeing a sprinkle. However, we know that it will probably fluctuate, so it could increase to maybe coverage of about 30%, 40%. 20% is to kind of cover the discrepancy that we are going to see model run to model run. And then let's pick it up into the beginning of next week. The European model still has moisture lingering here in the southeast. The GFS is not really buying that whatsoever. We'll try to get some better agreement on that as we get closer and closer to the beginning of next week. And then still, it's just kind of the story of pop-up rain maybe around us, maybe here in central Georgia as we go into Tuesday. And so none of these systems are really going to impact us in the way of maybe ushering in some drier air after they pass. It does just look like they're going to kind of sit, hang around, and then move off the coast or maybe just dissipate in nature. So it's going to leave that same air mass present all over the southeast, that kind of warm and moist air mass. But thankfully, it's not the air that you can wear. It's not that summertime warm air. We're not talking temperatures in the 90s. We're not talking dew point temperatures in the mid 70s, flirting with 80 degrees. That really just kind of puts a weight on your shoulders as you walk outside. So we will be very thankful for that. If we were to see those two factors, even warmer temperatures and even more humid atmosphere, well, that would definitely lead to scattered showers at the minimum, even some scattered severe thunderstorm warnings like we are used to seeing during the summer months. That doesn't look to be in the cards, however, for your forecast. I do want to talk about our day one storm outlook. Well, not our, because we're not in one here in central Georgia. This green area may clip the very northern edge of Jasper County if I were to zoom in, but just giving you an idea, this is really just taking the shape of where this boundary is going to stall at. The northern portion of the state of Georgia, basically everywhere from central Georgia north, is under this level 1 risk for seeing some severe weather, just covering the bases about a severe thunderstorm warning or two that could pop up. And it does extend up to the northeast of us, northern upstate South Carolina, most of the state of North Carolina, and stretching back over into states like Alabama, Mississippi, and then over into Louisiana and far eastern Texas, just to the northeast of Houston. And then another system is way out over here in central Texas, and there's a little bit better chance of seeing some severe weather in areas like Oklahoma, getting into Kansas, and kind of right smack dab in the middle of Texas, just to the west of the Dallas area, in that yellow shaded area, that level 2 risk. So we're not seeing anything here in central Georgia. Once again, the farther north that you live, you could see maybe a stronger thunderstorm. And I wouldn't even rule out a severe thunderstorm the farther north that you live today. It's obviously something that you'll want to be very diligent to, especially during the afternoon hours, kind of paying attention to the radar and such before you are making your way home, because we know the weather does not obey these boundaries that we give them. However, this is really, really close to areas like Monticello, Putnam County. Just be a little bit aware as we head into the afternoon hours. I'm not throwing it out of the cards, but I'm not very confident in it popping up whatsoever. It does look like most of that active weather is going to be to the north of us, at least for today. Once we get into Wednesday and Thursday, we'll have to keep an eye on any of those outlooks, especially if FutureView maintains what it did have for Thursday afternoon. That actually looked like some good clusters of some heavy rainfall. We'll see if that translates to any of a severe weather risk over the next couple of days. In terms of the winds, a little bit of a breeze building in, not seeing those yellows and those red colors that are your really, really gusty winds. And if you do have a stronger thunderstorm pop up, then that's obviously going to have its fair share of gusty winds with it. But overall, it just kind of looks like a fluctuation. It doesn't look like we're necessarily going to be really, really windy at times, maybe just a slight breeze each and every afternoon heading into Friday. Taking it to the dew points, we still have these areas of some slightly drier air. Dew points maybe in the 50s, somewhere into the lower 60s, but not seeing any of the dark greens come to fruition. Now, these shaded areas that are a little out of the norm of the light green color that you see dominating most of the southeast, that's actually going to be your areas of no color, not to get it confused with this very muggy dark green color over on the left end of the scale. We actually don't really see any areas of that dark green over the next couple of days. So moisture is not going to be at an all-time high. There's not going to be a whole lot of water at the surface. And since we are pretty well south of the stationary boundary, we're not really looking at much of a concern with that in terms of some stronger weather. That would be closer to the actual boundary itself, because these stationary boundaries create a lot of lift with them wherever they do sit over in areas just to the south of them, and we still fall a little bit too far to the south of that boundary to have those sufficient ingredients and a lot of that lift. So how about afternoon highs? Not going to see much change really. Once again, our average and our almanac data isn't working right now. That will start to come back later this afternoon, if not probably sometime tomorrow. But mid to upper 80s is going to be the story Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way until we get into the weekend. Maybe some of the days that we actually get some clearing in the cloud cover, we have less of a rain chance. That's when we should tick on up into the mid to upper 80s in terms of high temperatures. Other than that, we could fall below this threshold, maybe somewhere in the lower 80s if you get lucky and find yourself a rain shower over the next couple of days. Your temperature will be a little bit cooler, somewhere into the 70s in light of that rain-cooled air. In the morning lows, the same story, just on the different end of the scale. Above average, but upper 50s, low 60s each and every morning, and more cloud cover that is present each and every morning should help keep these temperatures a tad bit warmer, although 58 degrees and 61 degrees does not feel all that different. Even though one number has a 5 in front of it and one number has a 6 in front of it, they are only 3 degrees apart in nature. So grillcast. Maybe a yellow spatula for the early evening hours tonight, around 6 p.m. According to the model runs that we've continued to look at, it looks like most of the rain activity should start to fizzle out as we head closer and closer to sunset. So I do believe tonight is going to be one of your better days to grill out. Green spatulas the later that you do plan on firing up the grill, but just have a little bit of caution if you do want to get an early start to dinner around 6 p.m. Not saying it's going to be a washout by any means. It just may be a brief shower, maybe hearing a rumble of thunder, a brief heavy shower in nature that you'll have to duck and dodge for a little bit, and then about 30 minutes later, you could be good to go. Partly cloudy skies, that rain has moved on out of the picture. Allergy monitor for today, no changes. Moderate levels of tree pollen, very high levels of grass pollen, ragweed levels are still slim to none, and mold levels are still going to be fairly low. I will say I have been looking a couple days ahead, and I did mention some relief on the end of tree pollen. I do expect these moderate levels to continue to tick down, maybe to some low levels, possibly even indicating that we're at the tail end of that tree pollen season at least, which would be a big win. And grass pollen levels are expected to go down from very high to high. Yes, not very much of a change whatsoever. We'll take the small wins that we can get. That's going to be at the latter portion of your work week. So 7-day forecast, you probably saw this morning, and I'm going to continue to probably take a look at these models and see what they are saying. About a 30% chance of rain or even seeing a storm or two as we go throughout Wednesday and Thursday. Just have more confidence that the coverage of that rain and maybe even seeing a little bit of a ramp up in activity to possibly sprouting some rumbles of thunder, some heavy rain, a little bit of gusty winds. That is going to be a little bit better for your Wednesday and Thursday. Still a 20% chance of seeing an afternoon and evening shower today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that continues on into the beginning of the work week next week. Once we head into the weekend, the resolution obviously on our long range models isn't the best. So once we can view them on our short range future view, it really gives us a much better idea of how intense that rainfall is going to be specifically, and then obviously the coverage area of it, because it's kind of just blobs everywhere. Normally, the best thing the long-range models are for are these organized systems that are approaching a couple days out with getting a kind of set-in-stone timing, especially with that system. So that's where it does stand Wednesday and Thursday. Your best chances at rain. You could even see a lower end thunderstorm, but once again, we're not expecting anything in the way of severe weather as it does stand right now. Just some lower end thunderstorms, hearing some rumbles of thunder, some heavy rain at times, maybe a little bit of a gusty wind, but still below severe thresholds as it does stand right now. That could very well change, and if it is to change, then obviously we will let you know if anyone's in a level 1 shaded risk area or whatnot, but right now it doesn't remain anything to be concerned about. And then we go into the weekend, not saying that you can't see some rain. We still have those 20% chances of rain, but that also means 80% chance that it's not going to happen. If you don't get any rain on Wednesday and Thursday, your chances do go down, but they are still there for seeing some rain as we go throughout the rest of the next 7 days. Each and every day having a very summer-like theme to it, without the humidity and without the mid to upper 90s that probably feel more like 105 and 110. So we'll take the small wins where we can get them, trying to find a little bit of optimism to give you with the forecast. Overall, these chances of rain are still pretty slim. Don't go canceling any outdoor plans, especially what you have for the weekend. This may just be a shower or two that you have to duck and dodge, and keep the umbrella on standby for any plans that are outside. So I think that will about do it. Not many changes with the forecast besides kind of the rain chances for your Wednesday and Thursday, maybe the possibility of seeing a low-end thunderstorm or two. So we'll continue to keep you updated as we continue to monitor model data and see the progress of the stationary boundary to the north of us. If it tries to kick into gear, sag a little bit farther to the south, that would have more implications for seeing better coverage of rain here, but not seeing any indication of that right now. Just continue to enjoy the warm weather and the partly cloudy skies, because that's what you will be treated to if you don't see any of these rain showers. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, we're back here at 10:30 tomorrow on 13 WMAZ Plus, and I hope you guys have a terrific Tuesday.